Hello and welcome to Taskmaster Talks with Kevin Sullivan. I am your host, JP John Poz, from the two-man power trip of wrestling. And of course, joining me is the former WCW and ECW World Tag Team Champion, former NWA Florida World Heavyweight Champion, a former United States Champion out there in San Francisco, and of course, one of the greatest minds and bookers ever in the history of professional wrestling, the Games Master, the Taskmaster, the Devil himself, Mr. Kevin Sullivan. Kevin, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, John. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good. It's getting very hot. We were just saying how hot it was getting, but you enjoyed some pretty nice weather up there in the
Yeah,
crazy. I don't even know where the crazy Pacific and Northwest. I guess you could say.
yeah. And we have a whole different uh, climate than Seattle. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So this is the real hot day for us at 79. But it's beautiful. But the sun, because we're up so high, is so intense. But hey, and we were on the water, so it's cool.
Nice. Love it. Of course, you're out there on those islands. You don't get any cold weather either, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. The Japanese current runs the leeward side of the island, so pushes everything towards Seattle.
Yep. Now I know you don't watch too much current stuff. I know you do try to stay current, but you don't watch too much current. Did you see this guy Max Caster on AEW with the rap? Did you see that whole thing?
I you can't get away from it because it's all over YouTube. You know what I mean?
Right.
And in this day and age, really, it's like Como, right? Was he thinking?
Yeah.
We were talking. They were talking 6 months ago. Him running for president, right?
Yep.
Uh, you can't do that shit anymore, brother. I mean, I remember this. This is when we were still NWA, and we were in TBS, and I cut through a taping where they have the tapes rolling and everything to go shower.
Yep.
I had my short, regular shorts on and a shirt, and carrying a towel. She said, "Where you going?" I said, "I'm going to go take a shower, hon." She said, "Don't call me hon." She flipped out.
Wow.
Thought, "Whoa, things have changed," you know.
Yep.
And that was over 25 years ago. So, you know, if you don't understand that everybody has a movie camera in their hand, you're an imbecile. And if you talk like that, has he been suspended or anything from AEW?
So I read yesterday, literally, that he was suspended for 2 months. Then I read today that the suspension's not true, but he's going to be off TV. So I don't know. It seems like he's getting in trouble, and he has to go to sensitivity training. Is what I what I've heard too. But I don't know if it's true or not that he's actually been suspended. But apparently, he got pulled from a show. So
Well, weren't they the woke company?
big time. Yep.
Is that a slap on the hand from a woke company? If
Yeah.
he did that in Amazon, what do you think would happen?
I don't know. What do you think?
I know he'd be fired.
Right.
My other daughter works for Microsoft, and you can't say anything, and and it's crazy that we've gotten so sensitive. In some parts, it's very good, I think, because the pendulum always goes too far to the right or too far to the left. We never stay in the middle. And I mean, and here's the thing: I don't know what Como said to these women or everything. If he touched them, it was very inappropriate. He deserves to
Right.
uh, get, resign. But you got to remember, he's from a different era. When you called the girl, "Hey, hon," "Hey, sweetie," you can't say anything anymore about anybody. And maybe it's the right thing to do where we become more educated about what comes out of our mouths. But it surprises me that he didn't get fired from this woke company. Isn't
I
what
feel like,
that isn't that what they talk about?
oh yeah, I feel like he generated great heat, but I guess is that the wrong kind of heat?
In this day and age, it is. I'll give you an example. My favorite television program was The Office. You know,
Hmm.
they were going to bring it back,
Yep.
but Steve said, can't bring it back because we can't get away with all those things they did. They did fat jokes, they did gay jokes, they did ethnic jokes. I mean, think about, Steve when he used to say, that's what she said, right? That was his
Yep.
tagline. Couldn't do it.
It's
So,
funny. I used to watch Three's Company all the time when it was on Nick at Night. I mean, we're going back years. Then I had them all on DVD. Then I foolishly got rid of my DVD. But now I'm rewatching them all again on this thing called Pluto TV, which is a great app. They have all the old episodes. So I'm going through all the episodes again. I was like, okay, that would be banned today. Like, I know because it's on this channel, they can get away with it because it's a
right.
streaming thing that you yourself have to turn on or, to go to that channel so they can get away with it. But man, so many of the jokes on there, it's so funny. And I love that show. It's hilarious. But they couldn't get away with any of that stuff today, calling him a fairy and
Yeah.
everything else. Yeah. And the other F word, like you can't get away with that.
No, no.
I can't believe like some of the stuff that he said in there that I got in trouble. The Simone Biles thing being a quitter, I was like, okay, are they getting on him because he went and made, like I guess made a mental health joke? I don't know. Like to me, it's like a little wonky with some of the stuff you can't say today. I think if it's controversial, it's good. I would think.
Yeah, but I, I have changed my opinion on a lot of things
Oh.
because I think you have to stay
Hmm.
current. That girl, to me, is the bravest girl I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah. Think about how hard she trained for 4 years after the last Olympics, that she was more concerned about her mental health. She saw something that wasn't right, in her head. What did she say? They get twisted or something,
Right.
right? That she decided that her mental health was better than trying to push through it. Let's go back. We're seeing a lot of wrestlers die young. A lot of trauma to the head. I mean, I remember when guys would keep their hands down to get a chair shot in the head.
Oh yeah.
You know, being macho. Uh, I think it affects you. I think it affects me a little. You know what I mean? I used to have almost total recall. I remember being in the crib and pulling myself up. It's not, I know that sounds crazy, but I could tell you a story. I had the chicken pox when I was 9 months old. I pulled myself in the crib and I saw my mother frying chicken. I thought, oh my God, she's going to cook me next. So, but now I have a little bit of trouble. Not bad, but it could be age. But I
Right.
think it has something to do. You know, you're getting jarred every night. You know what I mean? And some people's constitution is much stronger than other people's constitution. So my hat's off to her. And, people called her a coward and stuff. Really? She was getting up at 4:30 in the morning, training for 8 hours. God, a coward, please. I think she did what was right for her in the long run. And I think we should applaud her. And I look for her to be a spokesperson for mental health. And if she saves one person's life, it's better than any of those gold medals she would have won.
What about the Duke lacrosse joke? Was that stepping over the line? Because they got in trouble for that rape thing. I think they were exonerated. I'm pretty sure. I
Yes, they
think they
were
were not guilty,
exonerated.
but
They were
yeah,
exonerated. That
yeah.
was what pissed me off about it. if they were guilty, okay, you're borderline, maybe a little over. But these
Right.
kids were innocent. Don't bring it up because
Hmm.
you're stirring their life up again. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They've gone on, they got families, their kids are going to come up and say, "Oh, did you molest someone?" Come on, be smart. It's a new world. And if you're not, don't know it's a new world, you shouldn't be talking.
So as far as 1997 is concerned, and what we're going to talk about today, it's WCW Road Wild 1997, which was on August 9th, 1997. Like I just said, from Sturgis, South Dakota, at the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally. Again, we're going back there. The attendance, they say 6,500. Like we said last week, how the hell could they even tell? There's so many bikers and everywhere all over the
Yeah.
place. They're just guessing or making up that number. There's no way to know. Again, you guys aren't really taking gate, right? You're not making money off the
Yeah.
gate again, right?
And isn't it funny that it's 6,500, not 6,542? They're just,
Right.
they're
And
just,
last week it was exactly 5,000. Yeah, right.
yeah. They just
Make
made up
Yep.
numbers.
So the tagline is "It's gonna be wild." The buy rate is 240K. So pretty healthy on the buy rate there. I mean that's pretty good. A little bit more than Hog Wild '96 with last year. And like we mentioned, they changed the name to Road Wild, and it was due to Harley Davidson getting involved and saying, "Hey, we own Hog Wild, the name. You can't use it. So legally, we're gonna have to change it, or you guys are gonna have to change your name." And you're going to have to make it into Road Wild. But remember, we were talking last week. I actually
Right.
it did some due diligence and actually looked it up for sure just to make sure that was actually the case. And it was actually the case. They basically came down and said they're going to sue if you continue to use the name. They own the name Hogwild, meaning they, Harley Davidson.
Right. And that's something maybe the uh, legal department at Turner didn't do their due diligence like you did.
Right. And it seems like their legal department always does something, I don't know, incorrect or wrong, or they give somebody money. Like you're saying, Heyman was basically like, "I'll sue you guys." And you give him whatever he wants. Or McDivitt comes along and says, "Hey, you guys are copying Razor Ramon and Diesel." They give into it. The legal department's not great from WCW.
Right. It wasn't. Because, and I'm not giving them an out, but it was uh, it was like going on a whaling ship for the first time and never had seen a whale.
Hmm.
They had no idea what they were doing with wrestling.
Right. And McDivitt, I mean, he'll slice and dice you even if you're a
Oh,
good lawyer. So
yeah.
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 He's
I told you the funny story about me being deposed about Razor Ramon and Kevin Nash, right?
Oh, he said something to you, right? You were
Yeah.
being a
Yeah.
smart ass kind of.
Yeah. Well, he said, uh, "You have Razor Ramon." I said, "No, I have Scott Hall." And the next thing he said was, "Well, you have Scott Hall portraying a Hispanic thug." I said, "No, I don't." I said, "I don't want that for the company. It's a ripoff of Scarface. And you just said Scott Hall, not Razor." He said, "Let's take a recess." We went to the bathroom, and McDevitt said to me, "How you doing?" I said, "Good." He said, "You can go home now. Can you catch a plane?" I said, "Yeah, I can catch a plane." He said, "Great talking to you. Go ahead and go. I'll tell them that you're leaving." So,
Nice. See, hey,
but
you handle them well. Hey.
yeah, because it's a game. When you go to court, it's a game. These lawyers, they battle one another, then they have cocktails after the after the trial. It
Right.
just doesn't make sense.
Yep.
And I know in this country you're supposed to have the right to have a lawyer. But I was in Miami. I was in Florida when Miami was built on drug money.
Yep.
I mean, one time I got to Miami and I looked around and there was 40 cranes building buildings. Okay, now you're going to try to tell me these lawyers shouldn't have stepped away and said I can't defend them? No, it was money. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yep.
And there was that famous case with the cocaine cowboys. Do you remember those two guys, the
Yes. Yep.
Cubans? I mean, they got to the jury, they got to everybody. There was 21 counts, including murder. Innocent on everything except something ridiculous, like there was $100 check, $100,000 check they wrote. Everything else was cash, so they got them on an IRS thing, and I think they had a $200,000 uh, fine. Well, I listened to the lawyer talk, right, and they're interviewing him at his house. He's on the Miami River. The house is like a $6 million house, like Scarface.
Yep.
And he's smiling about it. You know what I mean? He's doing it tongue in cheek. I'm saying, well, you know, when you knew, shouldn't you have stepped away just for the moral clause? I thought the lawyers had, if they knew their, I know there's a lawyer in client privilege, but if you know someone's murdered 16, 17 people, shouldn't you step away?
Right.
But that's how things work. But in this environment, I know I'm jumping around, but in this environment, you got to know what you can say and what you can't say.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's coming from a guy that they used to tell me I could only go this far, and I would always take a step over it because then they'd say you can only go that far. But I mean, I look at stuff on interviews from guys, even baby faces, Dusty, you know, or Black. I saw something on Blackjack Mulligan just recently where, you said Ferry, where he goes, he's left-handed, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I went, oh God, today, I mean, God, they'd be off the air. The show wouldn't have, the show would have been stopped. So, and the thing is, with the kid that did it, I'm not crucifying him because he probably just didn't understand. He probably was trying to do the best job. I have no doubt that he was trying to get the most heat he possibly could, but he wasn't aware or thought he could get away with it with something in this day and age that he thought maybe could slide by, but you can't say anything. Even if you're right, you can't say anything.
Yep. It's true. Sad but true.
Yeah.
So back in '97 at Road Wild here at Sturgis, again, do you have any say? Like, Eric, we're going back here. We're not charging for tickets. I know. Again, he wants the sponsorships. He wants the ride to the show. I'm sure he loves the maybe the camaraderie is great. Maybe some sort of sponsorship money is great for the show. But do you like not charging for the gate?
Of course you don't, but you understand. You hit it on the head. He was more interested, and he was right, getting the hottest thing at that time, the two hottest things that everybody was doing that was a male was smoking cigars and riding motorcycles. So he attacked the affluent group because those motorcycle riders, probably 10% were real bikers. The other ones were lawyers, Indian chiefs. We probably can't say that.
Right.
Lawyers, doctors, professionals
Yep.
who he thought if he could grab them to watch TV, maybe they would buy NWO merchandise because NWO was so cool. Maybe they would start tuning in occasionally to uh, TBS, TNT. to watch some wrestling that they saw at Sturgis. I thought it was a good move. I really did. I wouldn't want to do it in Sturgis now.
Right.
It's the P3 dish of COVID, but
What do you think about like having WCW's name in with Harley Davidson? I mean, that's only a good thing, right? Just to have and be
oh,
like, wow, they're part of the rally. I mean, it does bring like the name up a bit, right?
and it makes it cool.
Right.
Vince didn't have that. It made it cool. It made it cool. And it's funny. I watch Joe Rogan occasionally, and every other, it seems to me anyway, every other guest, they're smoking cigars and drinking whiskey. The NWO was doing that. It wasn't whiskey, it was beer. The NWO was
Yep.
doing that 25 years ago. It was a cool factor with the bikes, the whole thing. All the wrestlers riding. There's Hulk Hogan with a specially made bike
Yep.
riding into town, leading the pack. I think it was a brilliant move by Eric.
What do you think about just the whole vibe of the show? I know aesthetically, we kind of said last week you don't really like. What do you think about the way it looks, like with the camera set up with all the bikes and everyone sitting on the bikes? I know you're more of a traditionalist, but do you like how maybe that could come off and how that could look?
I would have liked it a lot better if it was dark.
Hmm.
And the headlights from the bikes and you hear them
Mm-hmm.
revving the engines. To me, wrestling in the daytime is very difficult. It takes away the ambiance. And, I am a traditionalist, but I understand that you have to change with the times. And maybe on the opposite side of the coin, that was something that if you weren't a traditionalist and just turned into wrestling, you said, whoa, this is really cool. They're wrestling in a field, you know what I mean? And they're the bikers there, so you got a whole glimpse of a crowd of 6,500 on the nose, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So I think Eric did some very, very innovative things, and that was one of them.
Yeah, he was very out of the box. He wasn't your traditional wrestling guy,
No,
for sure.
no.
With this leading up to the show, which is really interesting, great addition of Nitro from Detroit, Michigan, at the Palace at Auburn Hills. Just awesome. Lex Luger defeats Hollywood Hulk Hogan for the title August 4th. Obviously, the pay per view is on the 9th, so it's just 5 days earlier. Luger wins the title. Shock. The crowd goes nuts. It's just an awesome moment. Kind of one of those things where it's like, holy shit, Nitro hit it out of the park again. No wonder they're dominating for all these weeks. It just was an awesome moment. What do you think here with Luger winning 5 days before the pay per view?
You know whose idea that was? Hogan's.
Yours. Oh,
Hogan.
Hogan's. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. He
Why?
thought he thought it would give the pay per view a shot in the arm, and it did. Because nobody thought in that building. If you look at the people when Luger got them in the rack, their heads are turning. They're looking for National Hall,
Yep.
and he gives up. The place erupts.
Yeah, you want to talk about like current day wrestling and fans not knowing good pop? Go back and watch that. I mean, you're right. It is an awesome pop. Like they were shocked, but they go
Yeah.
nuts. Even Randy Anderson as the ref is going nuts. It was a great moment for WCW. It was really, really awesome.
Yes, and Hulk did the right thing at the right time. I know I've been kind of blasted him a few times, but one thing about Hulk, he knew how to draw money, and he knew when to do the job, and he did it clean.
Yep.
Like Goldberg, clean.
Yep.
He just knew how to get a guy over.
Yeah, you can go back to Warrior straight
Yeah,
up, clean.
right,
Yep.
right.
with Luger, why Luger?
Because I think they never expected Luger to win it. They thought he put up a great match, but they didn't think he'd win because he had some bumps on the road getting to that title match.
Mm-hmm.
And, why wasn't Sting winning it? They just, that's why I say when he had him on the rack, if you look at the people, their heads are on a swivel. They're looking back, looking for
Yes.
Hall and Nash. And then when they realized he gave up, they jumped out of their seats like they were electrocuted.
Yeah. It was awesome, man. It's such a great moment, and one of those things where I love Nitro so much. That is one of the things I'll watch over and over again, just because the match is great. It's short and sweet, but it's great, and it gets Luger over. Also, I think Luger slowly but surely and quietly was probably the second most over guy in WCW outside of like Sting, eventually Goldberg. But in '97, it's like Sting who was there periodically, but Luger's so over. It's crazy what you guys were able to do with him that Vince couldn't do with him, and that's get him over as a big baby face.
I think that role that he played was one of the best I've ever seen, where he's making excuses, being late to
Oh
Sting.
yeah,
Sting
yeah,
would say something, he'd roll his eyes, and Sting would look at him. Oh yeah, buddy, good, good, let's go. It was just he played that role so well that I think that when he went into the ring, he wasn't a traditional baby face. It was like, oh, this guy's gonna get beat by Hogan, you
yep.
know, and boy, he did a magnificent job. Lex was always one of my favorite people. I mean, I was there when he started in Florida. He he was a misunderstood guy by a lot of people because he was very educated. He wasn't a wrestling fan. He was in it for the money, but he tried his ass off. And once you got to get through the facade of the total package and know Larry Fole, he was a great guy.
Love me some total package Lex Luger. I feel like he was great, especially in that era. He was so good.
Yeah,
Any politics backstage? He didn't seem like he was that kind of guy. This time around for WCW. Any backstage politics with him?
he was easy. He was easy for me. This time around, he was so easy. He'd come up to me and he'd say, "Hey, what if I did this?" And I'd say, "Well, Lex, the main event, they're using the chair. I understand what you want to do. It makes sense if you were in the main event." Okay, I was just asking. There wasn't any. He was a really on the team guy in that era.
Do you think that's why Hogan liked him so much and was like willing to do a job for him because he was so easy to get along with?
I think so. I think so.
Plus, it doesn't hurt you losing to a guy that literally looks like $1 million. Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like the guy is just jacked to the nines. So
yeah.
you don't mind, right? Losing to a guy that looks great.
No, 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 no. I mean, did anybody at that time look better than Lex Luger?
No, he probably had the best body in wrestling if you think about it. Like Warrior at one point, yeah, but not in '97 or whatever. It's definitely Luger.
Yeah, yeah,
So with this show, obviously going in, Hogan's not the champ. The NWO, a little bit of turmoil. The WCW guys all rushed the ring, and Luger had the big on the shoulder moment. They were all, loving Luger at that point. So he enters the show as the world champion after the NWO was so dominant. Is that like a little chink in the armor for the NWO? Is that kind of a good thing, booking
yeah,
wise?
yeah, yeah. You got to give the baby face, no matter how. I told you I'm a heat guy, but you got to give them hope.
Yep.
You got to give them that little glimmer of sunlight and let them bask in it, and then just pull the rug out from under them.
I remember as a fan, like because Hogan lost. I mean, we were ordering the pay-per-view regardless, but we were super interested because we were such NWO guys. We were super interested in Hogan getting the title back. So we had to be there a certain time where we had our. I remember we used to get our sub sandwiches from this place Villa Pizza right down, and we had our subs. We were ready. We're ready for the NWO to get the belt back. When we were so invested because he wasn't the champ. He just lost. Like, what? NWO is so dominant. So you're right. You gave us like the for us almost the opposite, but the glimmer of hope for the WCW. You're like, no, because
Yeah.
I don't know, we were crazy kids. We were just heel fans, I guess, NWO fans.
No, the NWO were at one time. The NWO, Hall and Nash were the best baby faces and best heels
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yep.
I told
they
you
were
that
so
famous.
cool. Yeah.
I told you that famous story in Toledo, where the fans broke out in a riot, fighting one another. The one of them had an NWO banner, the other one had a WCW banner, and they broke out in a huge riot. I said, "Well, I can't believe this. You know, it doesn't matter what they are; is we're getting asses in seats."
Yeah, dividing the fans, but amongst
yeah,
your fan base.
yeah, they can be elephants for all I care right now.
Yep. So when the pay-per-view begins, the first match, Harlem Heat, Booker T and Stevie Ray defeat Vicious and Delicious, which is Buff Bagwell and Scott Norton with Vincent in about 10 minutes. Ooh, another little chink in the armor here. NWO loses the first match out.
Yep. And that was planned to people thinking, oh, WCW is making their comeback tonight. Yeah.
To kind of lead you to think that Luger is going to retain as well.
Yep.
What'd you think of Vicious and Delicious, Bagwell and Norton? It's such an odd pairing when you think about it, but together they were pretty good. I mean, they had good chemistry. Bagwell was always a good tag team wrestler.
I think that's the best tag teams sometimes are the exact opposites. You know, Bagwell was the pretty boy who could really work, and then Scott Norton could work, but he was the muscle.
A little bit of Heart Foundation vibe here with Brett and Anvil. That's the kind of vibe you get from Buff and Scott Norton.
Right.
With Vicious and Delicious losing here, like you're saying, teasing a little NWO loss here. Harlem Heat goes over. Any bigger plans for Vicious and Delicious, or were they never going to kind of like the outsiders of the top team in the NWO? They weren't going to kind of ever surpass them or get pushed up further, were they?
No, because of Scott's Japan commitment. I had to be very careful of that. We got $1 million. You know, I was very aware of that. And I'm very aware of how sensitive the Japanese are. So
NWO Japan too, with obviously Norton in there, so popular at this point. I mean, they're selling merch and they're killing it in NWO Japan as well. Even Mike Rotunda, the Michael Wall Street, he's over there pretty much full-time wrestling for New Japan as a member of NWO Japan. You have the fake Sting over there. You know, you got all the Japanese guys doing the Buddha, Chono at one point, Tenzan.
Right.
I mean, you got NWO Japan was huge.
Yes, it was. And it was the best crossover, I think, in the history of wrestling.
Financially, it's got to be up there, yeah.
Nobody's ever been able to do that again, I don't think.
No, on a much smaller scale. They've gone over and had, you know, tours and stuff, but that was crazy. That was like a takeover in two different companies and two different continents. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something. The first time National Hall went over, they were selling NWO leather jackets for $500 bootlegged, and they estimated that whoever did it made $500,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Crazy. It's funny because you still watch shows in the States, of course, but I watch a lot of Japanese stuff too, and you see NWO shirts when they have fans over there. You see them still wearing NWO shirts over there, so you know that they sold merch like crazy over there. And I think it was Sonny Ono was saying that, I guess it was Tiger Hattori or somebody was like the go-between. They would sell them the merch, that they'd keep all that money, but then they'd sell the merch for double what they bought it from Sonny Ono and Bischoff or whatever. So it was like they had a little scheme there of merch that they would just kill it with the NWO.
Right, right. I didn't know that, but I'm sure there was. Yeah,
It's crazy to think just those three letters, but how important that NWO was globally, just
yeah.
nuts, huge. So the next matchup, Conan, your boy, who's a member of the NWO right now, defeats Rey Mysterio Jr. by submission in a Mexican death match. Match goes about 10 minutes again. Funny at one point, he like unmasked him. You don't see his face, but unmasked him. I mean, it's a vicious kind of a brawl here, different than a normal Rey Mysterio match Rey Mysterio match, excuse me, that we're used to.
Yeah, yeah. And I knew that Conan is a big time player. Ray is too, but Conan is like Reggie Jackson, in the World Series. Reggie hit 3 home runs, right? I know
Yep.
Conan was going to knock it out of the park with Ray.
Definitely different style. Obviously, the Mexican street fight. He ends up winning with the Tequila Sunrise, really playing up Mysterio as the underdog role, fighting from underneath, playing up that knee injury too, which was, I guess was semi shoot. But
It was
after,
a,
so he was really injured, right? His
yeah,
knee.
yeah,
Was this a kind of way to get him off for a little bit?
yeah, yeah. He needed to recover. Yeah, you didn't want to keep him going out there doing what because he would not take it easy, Ray.
Yep. After
And
the match, referees come down, the trainer comes down. I mean, they really played up. They put a leg splint on him. I mean, they really play up the injury, but seems like obviously, like we're saying, so much legit injury.
yeah, it was a legit injury. I mean, I don't think that was a legit injury at the match, but he had a bad knee. He needed time off.
Was it good to get Mysterio in a different style match too to show like his range?
Absolutely. And it also was good for them to see how vicious Conan could be.
Right, his friend. He didn't even care that he was
Yeah,
hurting his friend. That was the
right,
big selling point.
right,
So the NWO gets a win here after losing in the main. So it's kind of saying, okay, maybe they're righting the ship, right? It's like,
right,
maybe they can right the ship here.
right, right.
Next
And it's
up,
getting a little shocking because you think Ray's going to go over.
the underdog's going to get the win, and
Yeah,
that gets squashed out.
yeah,
So next up, it's funny they cut to Tony, Bobby, and the Dream, telling us about how important the event is, how big it is, how big this biker rally is. But it's funny the garb and how they're dressed. It's just funny, like the way they're dressed. I guess nobody's telling them what to wear. I'm guessing, right? They're kind of just figuring out how they should dress as bikers.
yeah. I guess so. I guess so.
Like Tony looks silly. I think Bobby looks silly on purpose. The Dream, American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, does look kind of cool, like the way he's like, with the cutoff sleeves and stuff. But it's funny, Tony and Bobby look out of place.
Yeah, and Dusty was center stage on that one, and rightfully so. The
So
American dream was the American dream.
yes, oh yes. So with that too, it's just funny to look back. But then me and Gene on the hotline says he's going to have some spoilers and who's coming into the company. Did you? I know we talked about this before, but did you ever mind like, hey, Gene, let's not spoil everything. I know people are paying for it, so but have you ever said like, hey, Gene, let's not, because he's literally telling you who's coming in the company in the upcoming weeks. Do you
No,
ever say anything to him or no?
no, Gene and I got along famously, and Gene got part of that, and I wasn't going to step on his payday. Gene got
Gotcha.
part of their call-ins. Yeah,
Gotcha. So the next match, Steve Mongo McMichael and Chris Benoit defeat Jarrett and Malenko with Deborah in an elimination match that goes about 10 minutes. What do you think here? Mongo and Benoit go over elimination style.
yeah, I think it was the right thing to do too. I mean, there was still the Four Horsemen. You know what I mean? Part of the Four Horsemen. So I think it was the right thing, and I think the people bought it. John,
Yep.
oh,
Yep. Can you hear me?
John, yeah,
Yep.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
So McMichael and Benoit win there. Obviously, the Horsemen are going to be looked upon strong as you build towards Fall Brawl, where it's going to be Horsemen against the NWO. Is it important to make sure that they're kept strong before the next pay-per-view?
especially the two weakest ones.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And obviously, Orange is going to be having a little bit of problems here, which we're going to find out in the upcoming weeks. He's going to have the injury,
Right.
and Kurt Hennig may be playing a bigger role, which kind of gets teased later on in this show. So,
Right.
Alex Wright is the cruiserweight champion in the next match. He defeats Chris Jericho in 13 minutes. Good match here, but the crowd doesn't really care for a lot of these guys. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
they really only know big names.
That's it. They only knew the big names because they were casual watchers. And, you know, when you go to what I said, that's glass ceiling, it was hard for anybody to break that, even poke their head through for the average wrestling fan.
With Alex Wright and Jericho here, a good match. Just obviously hurt by the crowd. Do you think that kind of stinks? Maybe the match should be shorter because the crowd's not going to react. You can't judge by that. You got to do it for the people that bought the pay per view.
Yeah, you got to go for the people that bought the pay per view, but I wanted, I knew I was going to have a good match, so I wanted the people at home to see a good match. I wasn't so intent on the 6,500 to the T who didn't pay. You know what I mean?
Yep. And Jericho here is kind of like the white meat babyface, the generic like yeah baby kind of guy. So it's interesting to see his character where it's going to be. Obviously, even months later, where it's going to be and how he evolves. But even Alex Wright here, did you think that things are looking good for him moving up the card, or is he one of those guys, like we said, glass ceiling guy, not language barrier really doesn't really hurt him, but foreign guy kind of thing? Do you think he's ever going to climb the mountain?
It would have taken him a while, but he could have done it. He was so young. He was so young, and the NWO was grizzly veterans. You know what I mean? It would have been a great climb for him, but he ended up going back to Germany.
So he retains his cruiserweight championship here as we move on to the next match, and it's a good one. Ric Flair defeats Syxx of the NWO in about 11 minutes. Of course, the dirtiest player in the game cheats to beat Syxx on this one, which is great. What do you think here? Is Flair happy with his place on the card versus Syxx?
I think he understood his place on the card that night, and he knew getting a win over Syxx was good for him. So he was happy. And Syxx did a hell of a job.
With this match, I know it's great. Do you think Flair's thinking that he should be wrestling Hall and Nash and the other guys that are upper tier NWO guys, or do you think he's okay with this? Because it almost seems like he's getting pushed to the middle ground.
Well, I think he was okay with this because it was just a stopping point for him for a while. He knew that. We were a group, if you noticed, the Four Horsemen group all won.
Yeah.
So he knew what we were going for, to give them straight up wins before they met the NWO.
With this, is there a lot of backstage issues? Because you hear rumors that Flair and the NWO, Flair and Syxx aren't getting along backstage.
Sometimes people are too sensitive, you know what I mean? And it's a shark tank back there, brother. If you're sensitive, the great whites are going to attack from every direction. So
Right,
toughen up.
right. With this backstage stuff with them, obviously it's going to end up into a real feud because Horseman NWO, and eventually we'll talk about this later episode, but they're going to do that great parody thing with Orange retirement. But it seems like a lot of tensions are rising with NWO and Horseman in front of the camera and behind the scenes.
Yeah, when you been on top for so long and a new group comes in and they're getting pushed to the max, you start to get insecure. So you have to take that into consideration and kind of put your arm around their shoulder and say, hey, listen, this is what's going to end up going to happen. You can't have a plan. And when a guy comes to you and say, "Why am I doing this?" It's a lot easier to say, "Well, when the blow off comes, you guys gonna win."
Right. So the next match, Kurt Hennig defeats Diamond Dallas Page with Kimberly Page in about 10 minutes. Interesting thing here is there's a bunch of ref bumps. There's a run in from Ric Flair, who kind of gets involved a little bit here. Thanks to a wicked face smash, he gets a little bit busted open. But as soon as Page turns around, leaves him vulnerable to the perfect plex, and Hennig gets the win. Here, thing is, that's a little bit of tease with Flair coming down and Hennig joining the Four Horsemen. Also keeps Page strong in a loss by kind of getting distracted, a little bit of cheating there, and gives Hennig, the somewhat newcomer, a win. Is that kind of all how it jumbled down? Is that somewhat correct?
Yeah, but you got to realize this: Kurt Hennig was the greatest worker of all times.
Mm-hmm.
You repay your guys. Yeah, you know, Dallas worked harder than anybody, and he understood what his plan was there, and he knew his day was going to come. So, giving him that out, he was uh, he was gracious enough to do the job, but he was glad that Rick came down because just rubbing elbows with Rick raised him.
Yeah. So with Hennig getting the win here over DDP, DDP still kind of in a feud with Macho Man at this point, who is in the next match against the Giant. So the Giant then defeats the Macho Man with Miss Elizabeth in about 6 minutes. Giant catches Macho Man off the top rope, chokeslams him, and wins the match. So he's, of course, part of WCW at this point in 97. So that's 3 wins there for WCW over the NWO. Harlem Heat, the Giant, and Flair. The only loss was Mysterio to Conan. What are you thinking here? WCW dominating.
Yeah, I think it. Like I said, they needed to have the uh, spark of life come to them, and then get it jerked out from underneath them. It's just recycling it. Just okay. Maybe this is going to be get more and more competitive, which it did.
So what do you think here about Macho Man, who's in the NWO at this point, taking the loss? Do you think that it doesn't hurt him at all? He's Macho Man. He can
He's
afford a
Macho
loss.
Man. He's Macho Man. You can't hurt him. Can't hurt him, especially with a 7-foot monster.
Yep. The best feud you guys had in 97 to me, or my favorite feud, and I guess it was feud of the year in PWI too, but Savage and DDP. They both lose on this show. Eventually, obviously, we'll come back around. They'll be having a tag match on opposite sides at Fall Brawl, and then Halloween Havoc. Their big feud will come to an end. But what do you think about both of them taking the loss here? A little bit of like I guess like a U-turn on the way back to the feud.
It's that most wrestling companies fall into patents. I'm against patents. Did you bet on Mike Tyson against Buster Douglas?
I would have, yeah.
Yeah.
I would have lost a lot of money.
Yeah. So we need to do that once in a while.
So here, WCW's on a bit of a roll. Like I said, they're 3-1. They're about to be 4-1 as the Steiner Brothers, Rick and Scott, with Ted DiBiase, defeat Hall and Nash, the Outsiders, by DQ. And Hall and Nash will retain the tag team championship here. It's about a 15-minute match. What do you think here? Hall and Nash lose, but they do it via DQ. So that means WCW's 4-1, but really doesn't make the Outsiders look bad in the loss. They just got DQ'd.
Yeah, and Rick Steiner and Kevin Nash are best friends, so the match was great. The DQ helped both of them. It was like nobody got hurt, but the Steiners' stock raised a lot in that match.
You guys teased a lot of the Steiner Brothers winning the titles in 97 only to get it brought back. You know what I mean? You give it to them and you take it back. Here, you think they're going to win, but they win by DQ. Is that a lot of something on your part where you're saying booking-wise, I want to tease the Steiners as far as getting to the mountaintop? You'd like them more on the chase?
At the time, yeah, it would have been. Yeah. But I knew the NWO was doing a clean job down the line to the Four Horsemen. I didn't want them to put the Steiners over on a clean pin.
What do you
'Cause
think
I was
about
thinking,
DiBiase with the Steiners?
I don't think the Steiners needed a manager.
No,
What do you?
I don't think it worked.
No, I don't. It just didn't. It was an odd piece. It was trying to put a square peg in a round hole.
I agree. Just I don't know, something about it. I just didn't like it. Didn't click. It didn't make sense. DiBiase as the $1 trillion Ted or whatever they jokingly would call him was great with the NWO, and I know he was born again. Was that a reason why he didn't want to be a heel anymore?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think, when he came in, that was before Eric turned into a character. And I think once Eric turned into the character, he couldn't keep up with Eric.
I got you. It just seemed like DiBiase and Steiners just didn't work. I know. I just didn't like the pairing with them.
Yeah. Two of the
So
best guys on the crew don't need a manager.
yes, Steiner Brothers are one of them. It's just weird pairing there. Outsiders, no problem taking the loss. I know it's by DQ, but
None.
outsiders, no problem losing.
No, none. In
So
fact,
then
that was Kevin's finish.
oh wow, okay.
Yeah, because him
Did
and
you
Steiner are such good friends. Kevin's the godfather of Rick's oldest.
is that the
So,
one that's in NXT right now, Bronson?
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw him the other night. He was on playing a security guard on TV.
Cool.
It's funny. He's like way bigger than the guys he was being a security guard for, like the wrestlers. Pretty funny. As far as main event time, Hollywood Hulk Hogan defeats Lex Luger for the WCW World Championship in about 16 minutes. A lot of shenanigans here. The NWO comes out. Everybody's kind of coming out. There's baseball shots going on. There's a lot of cheating. Luger seems to be fighting everybody off, but then a fake Sting nails Lex with the baseball shot, and Hogan pins him. You got the new champion. Obviously, it was not Sting, even though the announcers tried to sell it like it was Sting. I believe it was Nash, if I remember correctly. It was Kevin Nash that was dressed up as fake Sting. Obviously, Sting is not 7 foot tall, so that's kind of a dead giveaway. But I just thought that was kind of funny that they were really playing into that. Can they really trust Sting again? Kind of playing into that angle.
Yeah.
What do you think here, though? He cheats again. He's on top of the mountain after that little blip in the road and that little blip in the radar.
Yeah, and nobody at the end of the night, it was Hulk won the world title again. Nobody talked about WCW winning the majority of the matches. It was Hulk winning the title back. Let me rephrase that. It was the NWO winning the title back.
Right. So wasting no time, Hogan and the crew celebrate. They hightailed it back. The announcers are wondering, what's going on here. Steiners and Hennig trying to help Luger. The announcers are not happy. They're pissed. Really selling this, the beating and the win by the Hulkster. They're saying, "Damn it, we thought we had the NWO. Now the NWO is back." They go to the back. Dennis Rodman is there, and they spray paint the belt NWO again. I thought this was a cool little moment.
I did too. I liked Dennis being there. He was a very, very unique guy, to say the least. And he was great to get along with.
Was he always planning to be there?
Yeah. Yeah. Wasn't that the famous one where he missed practice?
I'm trying to remember that exactly because I know it's in that we talked about that documentary, The Last Dance. But I know he would tend to pick WCW over the Bulls, which is nuts.
Yeah, he missed a couple of practices, and you saw The Last Dance.
Yep.
Where Michael said, "That's Dennis being Dennis. He'll be here to play."
What do you think about the spray painting of the belt? I know we talked about it a little bit last week. Do you like the spray painting of the belt?
Most traditionalists didn't. I loved it. It's like a dog pissing on his mark,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saying that they own the big gold belt. They own WCW.
Right.
What did you think overall about the pay-per-view? Obviously, NWO goes 2-4. They lose a bunch of matches, but they win the big one. They win back the world title, and I think that's what's most important. Hall and Nash cheated. We're able to keep the tag titles, but the most important thing was that Hollywood Hulk Hogan retained his WCW World Heavyweight Championship.
I give it a thumbs up. I give it a thumbs up.
What did you like most about the show? I know maybe not the ambiance and the atmosphere of it, but what did you kind of take away, and what did you like from the show, booking perspective wise?
That WCW got lights on them, and they weren't just pushovers.
With Hogan being the champ again, is that his call again? He said he's going to lose to Luger. He wants to win it back.
Yeah, yeah.
You have no problem with it?
Well, he's Hulk Hogan. He did a job for Luger, and it was the right thing to do, I think, that night. Because the NWO still was what was drawing the money.
Did Luger have any problem
None
jobbing back to Hogan?
whatsoever. None whatsoever. None whatsoever.
So the NWO Kings of the Mountain yet again here, Road Wild 97. As we put the close to that, we close the book, close the chapter. Let's go to the plugs. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. Check out the website tmptempire.com, and of course you can follow Kevin on Instagram at Taskmaster Talks, and go to Pro Wrestling Tees, prowrestlingtees.com, and hit up the Kevin Sullivan store. He's got a couple shirts on there. Again, that is prowrestlingtees.com. Kevin, what else you got going on?
Well, I'm going to Fort Wayne this weekend with Andrew Anderson, and then I'll be going to Texas the following weekend for SWE Fury. So things are going good.
Nice. I'm hearing that you are now the director of operations. You got a bit of a raise, right, from the
Yeah, I guess so.
promotion. Is that true?
Yes, it is. Yeah, yeah. Teddy Long was it, and his wife is sick, and Teddy's had to go home and take care of his wife. So,
Are you booking again?
yes.
Oh,
Yeah. So
we're going to take it back to your glory days. This is great.
well,
SW Fury is going to be like the NWO.
well, we'll see. I got a little group going there. Privilege, Charlie Haas, Max Castellano, and Rodney. So I got a great nucleus of heels, and Jacob Fatu is coming in this weekend. So you can never
Ooh,
tell which side he's going to go on. So
that's a good one. MLW champion for a long time. He's very good.
Yeah. I've known him for a long time. He's a great guy.
Nice. Well, congratulations on now being the director of operations, SW Fury. That's pretty big time. Pretty cool.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Like to thank everybody for tuning in this week. We'll see you right back here for Taskmaster Talks with Kevin Sullivan. See you next week, folks.